Hello and welcome back to Muses and Mystics. I am Percy.
And I'm Carlo.
And today we are here with Eóin.
Yeah, say hi.
Hello, my name is Eóin. I am an Irish folk practitioner from Ireland. Let's see. I don't know. What else is there to me? I'm very angry online at
And you're one of my favorite people.
Yeah, you're one of our favorites.
Yeah, okay, but I mean, that's not a personality trait.
It
The
can
problem
be.
with me.
Well, you're the one who
You're
couldn't
right. You know what?
pick
Listen.
any.
What?
You're the one that couldn't pick any, so.
Okay, yeah, no, I struggled. I'm not gonna lie.
You have your shop with your readings.
Oh my God, yeah. Okay, so I sell tarot readings through my website, Siopa Cailleach.
There will be a link.
Yeah, because saying it out loud, I realised that might be
It doesn't
misleading.
look
You
like
might
how
not
it's
get
spelled
there.
to, like, move.
You might not get where you're supposed to go if you write down phonetically.
Yeah, it's we will put a link down there. Can confirm he is very good at what he does.
He is.
Thank you. I try very hard.
And you succeed.
Yes.
Oh, I also post blogs in my drafts that I never post, but I do say that I make blogs.
You still haven't sent me that one that I was gonna proofread.
Yeah, it got drafted. I'm not gonna lie. I need to. Like it's finished, but it's scary. You know.
Yeah.
I don't like posting things online.
That's fair. You also
comes on a
live very
podcast.
busy.
I don't like posting things online.
I don't like putting things online.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're valid. I also write things and then never post them.
Yeah.
There's so many things in my notes app that I've written a whole blog post and then I've just left it there because I'm like, no, the internet's not getting that yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, see, okay. What happened was I made that whole like Bridget article about like how to worship Bridget and like the historical context behind worshiping Bridget and like the synchronicities. Okay, that's a nice word, between Bridget the goddess and Saint Bridget. And then I never posted it because the Catholic Church murdered children, and so couldn't really.
Yeah.
I didn't feel good posting it. It felt bad.
Yeah.
And so then everything just got kind of sidelined. But funny enough, though, that one that I was going to send you would kind of hold. It would make sense in it fits with today's topic.
Yeah.
Well, feel free to send it to me sometime around the release of the podcast, or just whenever you want to send it to me.
Yeah.
And I will proofread it.
Oh wait, I could. I just had like a really good idea, based on the really good idea that you just said. It's the exact same thing, but I'm going to reword it because I'm a man.
We should probably tell everybody else what the topic of today's episode is.
Yeah.
Rather than just like keep it as a secret.
Jumping around the point.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to know that today we are talking about keeping cultural context in your craft.
Yeah.
We're not going to tell you that.
No, you're not allowed to know.
Just the audience never gets to know what this episode is about. It's just the Eóin, Percy, and Carlo show.
Yeah.
That'd be a good show, though. We should do that. We should replace Jimmy Fallon.
That's next week.
Yeah, back to the actual topic.
That's next week.
That's next week. This week, our hot takes are about keeping cultural context in your cultural practice.
Yeah.
Okay, well then, allow me to begin.
Yes.
Please do. Enlighten us.
So, a lot of people say that you shouldn't dive headfirst into deity work. And I agree with this.
Yes.
I think we can all agree with this. I don't agree with it for the reason that most people agree with it. People who say it's kind of dangerous. And I'm like, okay. What I really kind of think you need to know is if you want to work with and worship deities from a culture that you are not connected to, and by connected to, I mean like actively contributing to and speaking with people who live in this country where this culture is mainly found, not my great-grandparents who came over on a boat from this other country, and therefore I have this, and I am a representative of these people and their culture. Kind of went a little rock there. Basically what I'm saying is the first step to all deity work should be reconnecting with that culture and the people of that culture, and not, in fact, Googling facts about the deity.
Yes. I agree with this. I agree with this very much.
And even if you can't get direct contact with people from the culture, like personal one-on-one contact, there are probably teachers from that culture, or at the very least authors from that culture that you can find and read about and from and learn from.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because like...
Especially...
Oh, no, you continue.
Go ahead. Are you sure?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, well, especially when that culture has historically been sort of bastardized.
Yes.
Hold on, give me a moment. What I was talking about. Cultural appropriation, cultural appreciation. I feel like I'm reading notes. I'm not. I'm looking out the window as I say this.
Yeah. I mean, like, okay, well then, what's the difference between cultural appropriation and cultural appreciation?
Good, yes.
This is a good jump.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
I feel like
because we're
this
talking
is something...
about cultural appropriation a lot, but we're not actually defining what cultural appreciation is. So, yeah.
Because
I mean, you can appreciate... Okay, so even historically, cultural... Oh, that's a fun word to say. Historically, cultural exchange has happened across all over the world. Like, even... Like especially in Ireland, first of all, we are literally a nation of immigrants. Like, it's a really common thing to say about Ireland, because we've been invaded like 6 times. We have an entire book detailing it called the Book of Invasions,
which is a fascinating read.
I've never read it.
It is. I have read some of it. It's been spoken to me, and I've read some of it, and you know. I haven't actually fully read it though. No.
Yeah. To be fair though, you probably have a more full knowledge of it because you've got it from an oral tradition, whereas I'm just reading one translation of it into English.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's true too. But also I forget everything all the time, so maybe not.
ADHD versus cultural knowledge.
Yeah. Fight.
We'll see who wins. But it's just, you can appreciate a culture. Okay, yes, sorry. Ireland is a nation of immigrants, and a nation of emigrants too. There are Irish people all over the world. There are Irish diaspora and descendants of Irish diaspora.
Yeah.
Okay. And descendants of these people who have emigrated. You're just going to stay away from the word altogether. And they have a very different version of Ireland in their minds than the Irish people who live there. And you see this a lot with the IRA as well. A lot of people at least a lot of people who are from other countries and descendants of Irish immigrants, or like are Irish immigrants and have been for maybe 20 years and stuff. They never really see the IRA as a terrorist organization, which is kind of what it is. It's a like the IRA were domestic terrorists, and they did a lot of good for Ireland. And I'm not going to try and pretend that they didn't. They may not have done it very ethically, but the result, for the most part, was like freedom, basically, from an oppressive ruler.
Per republic.
Yeah.
A republic.
That was it.
But not in the American way.
Sorry.
No.
Because just because you said that, I need to talk about the time that I said that I was a nationalist. Or that, like, I believed in nationalism, and someone thought that I was American, and that did not go over well.
Damn. That's unfortunate.
So, we were talking about nationalism, and I was like, I forgot that nationalism in America is incredibly
understanding politics from an American lens is wild.
Understanding it's very wild. Even understanding politics from an Australian lens is wild, because like if you say nationalism in Australia, I'm giving you the side eye.
Yeah, I'm gonna be like
if you're saying you're an Australian nationalist, I'm
gonna be like, that's a bit.
You're probably advocated for the white Australia policy.
Yeah.
Sadly, even in Ireland now, it is it means something different. It's a different thing now than it was. Oh my! It means a different thing now than it did maybe like 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Don't come for me on that timeline. I'm not thinking of maths and numbers and time in my head right now. That's just like in real times it was different.
That's
but
fair.
like
Yeah.
now a lot of Irish Republican like propaganda and stuff is being used by the alt-right.
Yeah. No.
Very much white is Irish, Irish is white, and nothing more. Very racist, very conservative with their values.
Very upsetting.
That's
very upsetting. But anyway, so sorry. Irish immigrants and the descendants of these immigrants having a romanticized view of Ireland, and specifically the IRA. And the IRA is seen in, like, well, I'm just going to say America because that's where, like, you see the most.
Yeah.
You see it the most, but you see it's everywhere. So basically, they're seen as like freedom fighters, which is true. They fought for our freedom. But they also killed a lot of people, which was, to be fair, was in retaliation for a lot of their people being killed. It's a very nuanced topic, and it's one that I'm not even qualified to talk about fully. But basically, it boils down to the IRA were not all good, nor were they all bad. They were very morally grey. However, in modern times, the real IRA, I think they call themselves, are it's the new. Oh yeah, it's not the new IRA. It's the real IRA, something like that. They are literally just a terrorist group. Like they're just a domestic terrorist organization. They basically would think that the Good Friday Agreement is a bad thing, and that we want a full united Ireland, which is fine. That's a political mindset that is okay, and it's one that even I might prescribe to, like spiritually. I think all Ireland is one on like a spiritual level. The divides are entirely created by humans. Someone, and this actually made me really sad. Someone from, I don't know where they're from. They were from the north, but they asked me if they could still practice Irish spirituality and Irish paganism because they were from the north and they weren't sure. And I was like, yes, please
really
do.
It's
really sad, isn't it? Because really... this person.
No, you go.
This person felt so disconnected from their culture and their roots while living in their own country that they felt that they had to ask permission to practice their ancestors' religion and spirituality and stuff, and it's just so upsetting, deeply so.
Yeah, and that's really interesting that you've brought that up because my experience with Ireland growing up was predominantly through friends living in Northern Ireland, because my mum is English. She went to university in Scotland, and while she was at university, she met Kerry, who's a great family friend of ours. I love her, but no. No. Kerry is a person.
Okay.
And they live in the north. So I've spent a lot of time around not only just people from the north, but specifically someone who was a police officer during the Troubles.
Yeah.
Very biased. I'm sorry, just while you've said that, to interrupt, when you were doing research, not you specifically, you Percy, I'm speaking to you right now, no, like everyone, when you're doing research on the Troubles, you need to, and all of Irish history, you need to look at the author, and you need to look at their biases, and just keep that in mind, because there is a lot of biased writing out there. I have a resource document linked on my website. I think it's linked under resource document, and you can find, like, for the most part, unbiased writing about Irish history. But yeah, sorry, continue.
No, that's all right. I was pretty much done anyway. I was basically just going to make the point that you've made, which is like my view of it was very, very skewed.
Yeah.
So then doing research when I was coming into my spiritual practice, I learned a lot. Like there was some part of me growing up that didn't fully believe the stories that I was told by my mum and family friends, but that was only once I got old enough to question it. So there was already a lot of built-in bias there from my mum, who was English, who grew up watching the Troubles on the news, and then her friends, who one of them was a police officer, the others lived in Northern Ireland during the Troubles.
Yeah.
It was a very skewed perspective that I got.
Yeah.
So then, like, you have to actively unpack that. It comes back down to recognizing your own biases and being able to unpack them.
Yeah.
It's absolutely crucial to any spiritual practice.
Yeah. I just think it's completely off topic. Well, but not really. But I just think it's really funny how, like, I'm more Irish than you, Percy. And my nana, who, like, grew up in Scotland, but, like, has family that lives in Ireland still, and all that kind of stuff, never told me anything about it.
No, I was told a lot about it growing up.
Yeah.
And you're right, you are significantly more Irish than me. I have one generation of Irish family, and that is just they moved from Scotland to Ireland when they were kids.
Yeah.
One of them became a freedom fighter and got executed. The other one stayed there, grew old, and did a bunch of cool anti-slavery things. And then that's it. All the rest of my, like, that's the only Irish ancestry I have.
Being a social justice warrior is in your blood.
It's genetic.
It's genetic. My one Irish ancestor.
Just now that you said slavery, PSA, Irish people were never slaves. That's not even a hot take, that's just fact. Which kind of leads me into my next point about historical revisionism and the rewriting of history for some reason, because, well, by majority, like by winning countries like England, who do not write down history accurately because they were dickheads in real life history, and they don't want that writing down in the history books. But just a quick example of this is literally everything that England are taught about the famine, the Troubles, Irish history. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that about 95% of it is wrong, like completely wrong.
I'm going to validate your limb and say that literally, like, last week I had a discussion with my parents where the famine came up, and we were talking about, and they were like, well, there was really only one crop, and I was like, well, yeah, but there was basically enough food. It was just all shipped to England.
Yeah.
And they were like, and I was like,
yeah.
Yeah, so let's just talk about that real quick. Let's talk about the famine. So, to be clear, the famine was a tragedy, and by some, it is kind of considered a genocide.
Yeah.
2 million people died.
I think that's enough to be a genocide.
A lot of people died.
To this day, Ireland's population still has not recovered.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's that. Also, it wasn't really a famine.
Yeah.
Not really. It was, well, it was, but it wasn't. And a lot of people, like a lot of Irish people, or a lot of like kind of up their own arse Irish people who are very, very deeply steeped in Irish culture and Irish pride and ego, will not call it a famine, despite that being just a really commonly recognized name for it, and will call it the Great Hunger, or Angar the Mór. And in my head, when I say famine, in my head, I think Angar the Mór, the Great Hunger, because I don't really believe it was a famine either, because yes, there was blight, and it did kill the potatoes, but not all of them, only one particular kind of thing. And we had other crops. Like, despite what you may believe, we did have other food.
Yeah.
It just was taken from us and exported to England because we were oppressed and
Because that's
England didn't like us very much.
Yeah. England
So-
the worst.
Yeah. And so they basically just took our food and then rewrote history about it, which was kind of cute, kind of a hot girl moment.
A little
Gaslight
quirky.
gatekeep girl boss. A little quirky.
Gatekeep girl boss.
British Empire
yeah.
is gaslight gatekeep girl boss.
It kind of is, though. Oh my
No,
god,
it
someone
is.
should write that down.
Especially with all this
I'm tweeting it.
wonderful.
Mhm. Please do.
Oh my god.
But so that is one thing that when I say you need to research Irish history before you can work with Irish deities, that is what I mean, because that is a really not well known fact. A very common take is that the Irish people were stupid and didn't know how to rotate crops and didn't know how to grow things, despite doing it for thousands of years before.
Explaining to my father, a literal farmer, that was not the case was such an experience. I was sitting there across the table from him being like, so they had more than one crop and there was actually enough food, it was just being sold to England. Well, it was being taken to England. And just sitting across the dining table from him and being like, so this is what happened, and him being like, nah, they didn't.
Yeah, that's wild.
That doesn't sound right. But basically, that is, and that's not even like an uncommon thing. I can't even hold that against him because that is what's taught in schools.
Yeah.
That's what we are told online, basically. And the only way that you can really kind of get around that is to listen to Irish people, which shouldn't really be something that I have to emphasize so much.
Yeah.
And yet it is.
Like,
So
I'm talking about it now, like, yeah, I had to teach my parents this, but I also had to teach myself this.
Yeah.
Like, this is something I learned 13 plus when I was going and researching into Irish history.
Yeah.
This was not something that I learned in school.
No.
Mhm.
I don't think, yeah, I don't know about you, but at my school, we didn't learn anything about Irish history.
No, we didn't. We did a little, but not very much. Most of our history was about colonizing Australia.
Yeah, same.
Which, like, kind of gross, but, like, also kind of valid. Like, you can't learn about the history of every single country in the world, especially at a secondary school level.
Yeah.
But also, I feel like it would be cute for England to teach the right version of history.
I think, what is it? England, in their syllabus, I was talking to one of my mates, when, like, everything they learned about them colonizing Australia was just a single passage.
Yeah. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, ooh, all that genocide, all that generational trauma.
One sentence.
Tasty.
We can cram that into just a little paragraph.
What a girl boss moment, you know?
Honestly, yeah. Fun.
Yeah.
Very fun.
So yeah.
The other thing is, and this is something I've been told before, not asked about, told, that I shouldn't be proud, in quotation marks, if you couldn't hear those quotation marks in my voice, proud of being Catholic, or I shouldn't. Basically, they said that the ultimate act of decolonization would be to remove all Catholicism and all Christianity from your practice. And I was like,
No.
I mean, shut up. Real quick.
Oh my god.
Real quick, don't speak to me. Because let's take a minute to realize how important culturally Catholicism and Protestantism?
Yeah.
No, what's it called? The Church of England? Whatever. The other one. The orange one.
Anglicanism, but it is Protestantism.
Yeah.
Yeah, Protestantism is to Ireland, and how important Christianity is to Ireland. It's not like it caused wars. That didn't happen. It's not like there's still a great amount of sectarian violence going on to this day, like, literally, there are riots in Belfast, like a month ago, probably right now as we speak. Yeah, it's 11 o'clock in the morning. That's a riot time.
That's riot.
Yeah, everyone can protest that start that early, or even earlier.
Yeah, and there's just like even this year, the UVF removed a Protestant family, or no, a Catholic family from an estate in, I want to say Eóin in Belfast, but that might just be something that I made up. That did happen. The UVF did remove a Catholic family from their home in state because they're Catholic, but I can't remember where it happened. I cannot remember where it happened.
The take that removing Christianity from your craft is a decolonizing element has relevance to some practices.
Absolutely.
It does not. It is not the take that you want to have for an Irish folk witch.
Also, it completely ignores the fact that like Christianity came from the Middle East and was originally like a POC religion.
Christianity becoming a white religion
it's fascinating.
It's something that needs to be unpacked.
Yes, we're gonna unpack it sometime later. But
for now.
But yeah, it completely ignores how important like Christianity and also like generally Abrahamic faiths are to like the Middle East and like Africa and even Asia. So yeah.
Yeah, no, it was a bad take. It was objectively bad. And while they are not wrong in saying that originally Ireland wasn't Christian, we kind of accepted Christianity with open enough arms. Like, we didn't exactly go fight to the death for our pagan beliefs. That did not happen.
Yeah.
We assimilated pretty quickly. We were used to being invaded.
It's this whole thing where, like, especially in like the UK kind of area and like Europe, I guess. Like so many people, they just accept. They like sure, of course, there was people that were like resisting Christianity, but a lot of them just accepted it.
Ireland, especially, that is relevant too, because there are places in, like England and Wales that have had a lot of beliefs kind of damaged by Christian colonization.
Yeah.
But there are equally places like Ireland where a lot of beliefs were preserved within Christian traditions.
Yes. This, so much this. And okay, so basically, just to start off that point, the Irish people, we did not write shit down. We wrote literally nothing down. And it was entirely an oral tradition. The Druids, no, they did not write anything down. It did not happen. Like, maybe even, like, no, but it was Christians. Christians wrote this down. And I keep seeing Irish Americans, not Irish Americans, but like, I'm not going to say descendants of Irish diaspora every single time I want to say what I'm trying to say, so I'm going to say Irish Americans.
They are the predominant community online, so that's fair.
Yeah, exactly. Say something about like, oh, I hate the Christians because they changed my religion and they were not faithful when they recorded it. How dare they? And first of all, for the most part, they were quite faithful in their recordings.
Yeah.
And second of all, as Irish American, I said it again, I don't really care. As an Irish American who does not live in Ireland and has no physical ties to the culture and country anymore, without the Christians writing this down, you would not have access to it at all. None. Because you wouldn't have grown up in Ireland with that oral tradition. Like, a lot of people, like, an oral tradition doesn't mean we sit in a classroom and like a normal like school and we're just spoken to. It means that it's said out loud through the course of a lifetime. There'd be no like courses you could take where someone would sit you down and like explain everything to you. It was told through stories, and it was told through prayers, and it was told in ways that like it's very not conventional teaching and schooling.
It's the same with like Balinese folk religion and stuff like that. It's like largely oral, and like from my like place in Australia, trying to like reach back to like Bali and like look into it. It's very hard because like all of the resources aren't written down. You know, like
it's not remotely the same in Hellenic practices, but it is in pre-Hellenic practices. So a lot of what I focus my research on is Minoan practices, which were before the written tradition. So the only Minoan texts we have are Linear A and Linear B, and they're basically just stock lists. So nothing that was written down in those were like stories. There is some art and some sculptures, but we don't actually have a written tradition for Minoan beliefs. Most of what we've pieced together about them is from later traditions syncretizing with them.
Yeah.
So that loss of oral tradition is very clear in the transition between the kind of Golden Age and the Minoan Age through the Dark Ages, when a lot of cultural material was lost, into the classical period.
Yeah.
We see that a lot actually with Irish folk traditions as well. Like a lot of what we know about them is because of their syncretization, the syncretism that was found between it and like Catholicism. And my absolute favorite example of this is Bríd or Bridget. So basically, the Bacchae Bríochta, or the life of Saint Bridget, important distinction, is basically like a collection of her miracles and stuff like that, and the things that she has done to make her a saint. And if you actually read her stories in Irish mythology, like the Labor Gabala Eóin and the Cach Megaturd and stuff, ooh, that was interesting pronunciation. Okay, moving on. I said that. But if you read them side by side, if you place them side by side and you read them, the similarities it's hilarious. And you wouldn't really think it when you read if you read them separately, you'd be like, this is a cool story. But if you read them, and so this is basically this is why I say that to get a full picture of Bridget, you need to study the saint, maybe even venerate the saint, and also worship the goddess and read through the goddess stuff, because you really only get the full picture of one with the other. So even throughout the life of Saint Bridget, there's a lot of animals, but there's specific representation of rams, boars, and cows. And in Irish mythology, Bridget first appears with the king of. Oh, I'm gonna mess this one up. Okay, well, basically the respective leaders of the rams, boars, and cows. And then you see that in the life of Saint Bridget that was written 1,000 years later, maybe even more, or maybe 100 years or something. I don't know, but it was not written at the same time. Where she appears time and time again with rams, boars, and cows in the context of her animal companions as the same. And syncretism, that's just something that you learn. It's just, I don't know, it's just cool. I think was the point of that story. I don't know where I was going with that. I just find it a cool fact.
No, it's a good point. It's kind of like, it just represents the importance of acknowledging syncretism and later syncretized cultures, because a lot of people.
It's also why you cannot separate Catholicism from Irish folk practices.
Yeah.
You can. That's not a thing.
Yeah.
I've tried when I was younger. It doesn't go well. You can't do it.
Yeah. It's the same thing with Hellenic practices and Roman practices, because you cannot fully separate the images we have of them today from the images that were constructed by Rome.
Yeah.
There are there are important distinctions to make between Hellenic gods and pre-Hellenic gods and the Roman versions of those gods. But it does a disservice to all of them to completely discount any element.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's like I hate Ovid, right?
Yeah.
I hate Ovid, despise him with all of my heart. He's the worst. I just
fuck Ovid. All my homies hate Ovid.
Exactly.
He sells, and I think I retweeted this earlier today.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Frankie tweeted it earlier. I did retweet it because yes, fuck Ovid. All my homies hate Ovid. But a lot of the stories that we have from Ovid do actually make up important elements of the gods that we see today.
Yeah.
Like the Medusa myth that we currently acknowledge as like the most common one comes from Ovid. He's not necessarily right. It's not necessarily the correct version, if there even is a correct version. It is my least favorite version. I do not like it. But it is such a common version, and it does play into a lot of people's views of Medusa and Athena.
Yeah.
You can't take one
out. Yeah. It's the same here, basically. There's actually, who's Minerva again? Which was that?
Athena.
Okay, yeah.
Sort of.
There's some syncretism there between Minerva and Bridget, actually. I can't remember why, but like, because you know how there's that little bit of interlap between. Oh, my back. That little bit of interlap between. Okay? Yeah, no, I'm okay. Cultural exchange, basically, between different cultures. I don't know why that just popped into my head, but it did.
Yeah.
Continue. This was off topic.
No, that does make sense. Because, yeah, like again, Athena and Minerva, very different goddesses. Minerva and Bridget, very different goddesses. But there is, I can see the overlap there.
Yeah.
I can see the overlap because Bridget is a smith and a poet. And so is Athena, essentially.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, that's something I want to talk about. Misconceptions of Irish deities based on bastardized versions of them are like really popular in popular culture.
Yeah.
And modern media, such as Bridget, the mother, no, not Molly Morgan. I'll get to that in a minute. I will get there in a moment. But even just Mommy Bridget, where we take, because yes, she is the goddess of poetry, and she is very sweetums, quite kind, goddess of the heart, mother figure, go off. But also she is a smith. She is powerful, and she is like hot-tempered, and not really. She doesn't just have one face, and it's not just all sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah, the mummification, the mummyizing of goddesses.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say it, in predominantly New Age and Wiccan traditions.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is a blight on our community.
Yes.
Oh, it really is. Like, the whole triple goddess, maiden, mother, clone.
I see one more person call Hecate a Wiccan triple goddess.
Oh my god.
I am going to stab them in the eye.
Literally
I'm so fucking glad I haven't seen any like Balinese spirits in Wicca. Like Wiccans touch any of them. Otherwise, I'd be out there killing people.
Yeah, like
I'd be like, I'd be scarier than Rangda. Okay, you wouldn't be able to stop me.
Yeah, like literally, even Hestia,
Yes, oh my
people are
god.
like, oh yeah, Uwu Mummy Hestia. I'm like,
I have such a gripe with people.
she is the closest you are going to get to the whole motherly energy
but
vibe.
she's not.
But she's not Uwu Mummy energy.
No, like she's like literally like the god of fire, essentially. Like there's a heat to her that exists that people don't acknowledge, and it pisses me off so much.
Yes.
Yes.
Anyway, would you like to talk about Mummy Morrigan?
A little bit. So the triple goddess thing, when it's applied to triple goddess, yay, my favorite. Sorry, joke just popped into my head that I hate. But the whole like triple goddess thing, the like three aspects of Namarikna, the maiden, the mother, the crone. No, just objectively no. And
literally.
not just because that literally came from in like basically in mythology. There's not just three of them. There's more than three. They're kind of more like sisters in arms and not so much the same person.
I hate it so much.
Yeah.
Because I see it applied all the time to both Namarigna and Hecate. And I'm like, yes, there is an element of triplicity to at least Hecate. Namarigna in some stories, but there are more than three. But the element of triplicity is there. It's relevant to Hecate and to her mythos. And it's even, like, it's relevant to Artemis and Selene, and, like, there is relevance. But stop telling me that there is the Maiden, Mother, Crone, Uwu, Demeter, Persephone, Hecate triad. No.
God.
No.
Yeah, no, it's not real.
Yeah.
It's just not a thing. I don't really care if someone says it's real because I'm telling you it's objectively false. And the other thing is, like, okay, there's a certain amount of daily work that like we experience ourselves. It's very personal to us, and you can't really say one is right and one is wrong.
Yeah.
But I can tell you that if a lot of people are saying this, and some kind of less informed people, not very well informed about what they're talking about, are saying it and then saying that we're invalidating them, no, we're not invalidating you. You're bastardizing our culture.
Yeah.
And
we can't tell
I like to think of it. Yeah, I like to think of it like the Morrigan, not even as a distinct entity. I kind of see, and this is kind of personal to me, but like I see the Morrigan as a face, and like when I say the Morrigan, I mean it in the singular, as a face for these different goddesses that make up Namarigna, sort of like an egregore of them all, if that makes sense, and of what popular culture believes them to be. And then I also see distinctly the goddesses within that archetype, and I see it like an archetype. That's a good way to put it. I see it as something that isn't really a singular entity that can be worshipped, and more so an archetype that multiple entities fit into. Like you can worship them together in the name of this archetype, but it's kind of different. It's not really the same as worshiping a deity because it's not just one deity.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Like we can't tell you that your experience with a deity is wrong, but we can tell
I mean, I can because I'm rude and mean, but
I mean, we could say it, but you wouldn't have to listen to us.
Yeah.
But you do have to listen to people who are directly part of and understand cultures.
Yeah.
When they tell you what is and isn't culturally accurate.
Yeah. Like, for example, let's say someone is like, oh, I've had an experience with this deity, they're calling to me, but they're appearing to you in a way that, like, there's no, like, record of them, like, ever, like, making, like, themselves known.
Chances
like that
are, that's a trickster.
Yeah. And
or you imagining things.
Yeah.
Trickster spirits aren't as common as we think they are. People just make things up sometimes.
I feel like that could be an entire episode.
Yeah, it absolutely could be.
I'm not even going to get into it. Just keep talking. No, I'm not even going to try because we'll be here for another hour.
Oh yeah, we could do a whole. There we go. That's the next one that we'll get you back for.
Yeah.
But yeah, like we can tell you what's culturally accurate. Like people who have done their research and gone back to the myths and gone back to the culture and reconnected can tell you what's culturally accurate. And if you're going to ignore that, don't be surprised when you piss a lot of people off.
Yeah.
One thing I do want to touch on, kind of circling back a little bit, is like having to be able, like, to be aware of the issues of the modern day culture. Like, for example, for me, Hellenic practice. As a teenager, I spent a lot of time knowing nothing about modern Greece.
Which is a very
As a teenager, I spent a lot of time knowing nothing.
That, yeah,
I mean,
that's a full sentence itself. Yeah. Full stop there. But I also knew nothing about modern Greece.
Yeah, and like modern Greece is a very loaded...
It's a complicated issue.
Yeah, very loaded topic. Even, like, myself, a Greek, doesn't completely understand it, you know?
It's, yeah, like, there are... Even after having done my research, there are still aspects of modern Greece and modern Greek issues that I don't understand.
And you probably never would fully understand either.
Never could understand. My job as a Hellenic practitioner is to know as much as I can and support Greek people and Greek voices talking about the things that I don't
understand even. Like, it's not that hard to Google politics in Ireland today.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on, I'm going to Google that. Let's see what comes up.
Yeah, like if you Google Greece, I actually did this before the podcast. I Googled Greece to see what would come up, and all of the first results are about the fires.
Yeah.
Currently.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. If I Googled Greece in, what year it was? I think it was about 2016. What would have come up would be about the bankruptcy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also assume they'd be like, book your holiday now amongst that.
Yeah. Go to Santorini.
Yeah. I mean, Santorini is beautiful. But
gorgeous Minoan cultural hub.
Yeah.
I intend to go there one day.
We'll go there one day.
But I'm not gonna just move there and like take it over, because that's not how, like, just because I'm a Hellenic practitioner doesn't make me Greek.
Yeah, you don't have like the right to do that.
I don't have the right to do that. I don't have the right to speak over Greek people.
Yeah. Like, and to assume that you do have the right is a very colonizer mood.
Oh
move,
yeah.
You know, like ooh, like, do we have a colonizer amongst our mix? Ooh.
Pretty.
Yeah.
Like,
so what?
I'm sorry, I just Googled politics in Ireland today, and I found out that 1,782 COVID cases have been reported.
Oh my god.
With the promise that they could double by the end of the month.
Oh god.
Oh,
yikes. So for anyone listening, I am currently one of those cases. And I am still scared. So if you Google politics in Ireland today, you will see Irish culture and you will see Irish issues being presented to you. You'll see stuff on the Magdalene laundries. You will see stuff on a lot of stuff on COVID right now. There's because there's a little scandal about.
Ooh.
I haven't actually read it. It like broke this morning.
Wow.
All I know it's called the Marion Hotel controversy.
Yikes.
I think there is someone had a party.
Yikes.
Yeah.
So just Google it, and then also Google politics and use the Wayback Machine. Oh my god, I wonder how it would work.
Yeah, just Google things, look things up, reconnect with not only your history, but the modern day realities of the people and culture you're working with.
Yeah. Well, like, for example, with me, like, me wanting to be like a Balinese folk practitioner, that also means acknowledging the fact that a lot of traditional Balinese folk magic is very much tied up in like Balinese Hinduism. And while I myself am not specifically Hindu in my practice, I was like technically raised it, I guess, in a weird kind of way.
Through your dad.
Yeah, through my dad. And it means consolidating that within my practice, you know? And yeah. And I have done that to some extent. Like, obviously, I need to do more work. But yeah, it's just something important that you're gonna have to be like aware of.
Yeah, and for me, I'm going back, like, my practice is predominantly based in Hellenic practices, but I am going back and trying to reconnect with my ancestral practices, which are English, Cornish, Welsh, and Scottish.
Yeah.
So what I'm doing, like, when I go back and reconnect with those practices, I do still have to unpack the colonial elements of them.
Yeah.
Because I cannot be an English folk practitioner without acknowledging and working through the colonial implications of my ancestry and the modern reality of England.
Yeah. Oh my god, this just reminded me of, like, you know how, like, everyone's like, there's this trend of people saying, like, we're the daughters of the witches. You didn't burn. Yeah, you didn't burn because you were the colonizers.
Yeah. Like, you were the ones burning people.
Literally. Like, the people you were burning were probably, like, POC, like, witches and folk practitioners and all that kind of shit, you know?
Yeah, like, they were people that you disagreed with.
Yeah.
Most of them weren't even, like, midwives or herbalists or anything. Like, most of them were just people you didn't like. A lot of them were Jewish.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a big, long history of anti-Semitism.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Forgot about that.
Imagine forgetting.
Every day I am reminded of the witches you couldn't burn.
Oh, burn. No, that's a whole other issue.
Yeah.
That's a whole other issue. Also, if you are a privileged person, like a privileged white person with money, and so this is kind of off topic, kind of on topic for the cultural appropriation stuff, and the, like, listening to native voices. Folk traditions were practiced by the oppressed, basically. They were practiced by oppressed minorities, and they were practiced by the lower class.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't really a thing that would happen if you had money and you had, like, happiness in your life, basically. Yeah. Like, it was used quite frequently as a tool against an oppressor.
Yes.
Which kind of brings me to my next point about baneful magic and baneful workings.
Yeah.
When you say that baneful magic is evil and the people who practice it are evil, you say that coming from a place of privilege, knowing that you or your ancestors have never had to use it to fight for their rights.
Yeah.
So
I had this argument with someone online one time, and I was like, you're saying that hexing is bad because you've never had to. You've never been in a position where that is your only power.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, yeah, I made the choice not to. I was like, no. You've never needed it.
Yeah. Like, I follow so many, like, Black creators on, like, TikTok and Twitter and stuff that practice, like, hoodoo or voodoo or, like, anything kind of like that. And they're all like, most of the time, our people, when we were practicing baneful magic, it's because we had to, because it was grasping for any kind of autonomy that we could get at that time under slavery. Yeah. You know? And, like, for, like, anyone to completely ignore that and be like, oh, well, you shouldn't have done it anyway.
People
like, the amount of
baneful magic are predominantly women, people of color, lower class people who have had their power taken away from them.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
And we could do a whole episode on this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, like, yeah, sure, there are people that sometimes practice baneful magic to be dickheads, but those people are very different from the majority of people that practice baneful magic.
That's also,
especially historically.
Yeah.
yeah, like that's also a relatively new thing.
Exactly.
Like, that's a modern
yeah.
witch culture thing.
Exactly.
Not necessarily a historical precedent.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's it. I have nothing to add. Just
Yeah. We've kind of gone everywhere today.
Yeah,
I think we have.
Because like we meant to just talk about.
We've jumped over a few issues, but it was a pretty broad topic.
Yeah, that is true.
Keeping cultural context in your craft is a very broad topic.
Yeah.
And we all have very different perspectives on it. But ultimately we all agree, even though we are coming at it from 3 different perspectives.
Yeah.
So
Which I think is
basically,
nice.
Yeah.
Look at that. That's cute.
That's kind of, it's kind of cute that we can all agree that it's important to reconnect with a culture before you start working with its spirits.
Yeah.
Some might even say vital.
Yes, I would say
or
vital.
the first step,
Don't mess
if
with
you will.
Balinese spirits unless you want to get fucked up. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
I've told
I
Lucy
have-
some stories. Don't do it unless you know. Unless you know, don't do
Exactly.
it.
I have like an entire resource document. Now, it wasn't solely put together by me. It was put together entirely by Tegan, an Irish witch.
Yeah.
But you can see that like that's in the document at the very top. I just contributed a lot of information for it because, like, not just me, other people too. It was a group effort, basically, is what I'm saying, and it's linked in my link tree, which is just my website.
Yeah.
And if you are interested in Irish stuff, then it has mythological sources too. It's not all cultural and historical, but it's laid out so that I had to watch a magpie drop a full slice of bread. That was cute. Outside my window. If you go into my link tree, it is linked under a resource document, and if you're interested in it, in Irish paganism, you have to read it, and that is the law.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just wanted to drop that in there real quick.
Yeah. So Owen, before we wrap up, do you want to drop some self promotion?
Yeah, let's see if I can remember any of my handles on anything. It's the same, but it's spelled weirdly, so you all get to enjoy that.
And we will have it below.
Yeah. But it's Eóin Cailleach everywhere. Spelled incorrectly, and yet still hard to spell. You will find me mostly on Twitter because I am obsessed with Twitter. It is my little baby. I'm on TikTok very rarely. I'm on Instagram very rarely. Just go on Twitter. You'll find me on Twitter. And
it's always valuable when you put things on Instagram and TikTok, though.
Yeah.
That's true. Also, my website, siopacailleach.com, I think. It is also probably going to be linked because I can't, it's just really hard for me to say this. Like, you will never find it if you spell it phonetically.
Everything will be linked below,
including
the resource stuff.
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Yes, so thank you.
All of my DMs are open for questions, by the way, in case anyone has some clarifiers that they might need to ask.
You are, yes, you're very generous with your time despite living a very busy life.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you can find Owen linked below. As usual, you can find me everywhere at Eclectic.
You can also find me everywhere. Well, everywhere?
We will have links to everybody's stuff down below.
Yeah.
At Calliope Co, of course.
Yeah.
You can find us everywhere, just at Calliope Co.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us, Owen.
Yeah, we really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
Yeah.
And
the best.
Yeah, we love you. Yeah. So, yeah, hopefully we will have Owen back at some point because we love Eóin.
Yeah.
And yeah. Thank you and good night.
Swan.
Later in the Swan.
Yeah, that's messed up. What the fuck?
It's even more messed up when you realize that he started writing it as a metaphor for Irish politics at the time.
Ooh.
But according to his own admission, the Swan and Girl took such dominance over the verses that all politics went out of it. Oh yay, the skunk.
Nice.
Yeah, I thought I'd share that with you really quickly. Would you like me to do a dramatic reading?
Yes,
Please.
do it.
Okay. Up, black, striped, and damasked like the chasuble at a funeral mass. The skunk's tail paraded the skunk. Night after night I expected her like a visitor. The refrigerator whinnied into silence. My desk light softened beyond the veranda. Small oranges loomed in the orange tree. I began to be tense as a voyeur. After 11 years, I was composing love letters again, broaching the wife like a stored cask as if its slender bell had mutated into the night earth and air of California. The beautiful, useless tang of eucalyptus felt your absence. The aftermath of a mouthful of wine was like inhaling you off a cold pillow. And there she was, the intent and glamorous, ordinary, mysterious skunk. Mythologized, demythologized, snuffing the boards 5 feet beyond me. It all came back to me last night, stirred by the sootfall of your things at bedtime, your head down, tail up hunt in a bottom drawer for the black plunge line nightdress.
Ugh. I don't.
Yeah.
Is he calling his wife a skunk?
Yes, he is.
I hate that a lot, actually. Like, I don't know what I was expecting, but I hate it. I hate this.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, not the worst thing I've ever read. Not the worst thing I've ever read.
Still better than Later in the Swan.
Still better than Later in the Swan. Not the worst thing I've ever read, but I was like 9 years old on the internet with completely unfiltered access, so I've seen some shit.
You've seen so much shit. I don't even want to know some of the things that you've seen.
I'm legitimately traumatized.
Yes, not just by the internet.
No. No.
That's the worst picture you could have sent of him.
Okay.
You just sent a fucking Albus Dumbledore looking bitch.
Oh my god.
Oh my god. Anyway, so that's Seamus Heaney, the man who wrote The Skunk.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that gift with us.
Yeah, we were big appreciate. Would you like a dramatic reading of Later in the Swan in return?
Yes, that seems like currency to me. Continue.
Okay. Let's go. Let's see. Here we go. I hate it. A sudden blow, the great wings beating still, above the staggering girl, her thighs caressed by the dark webs, her nape caught in his bill. He holds her helpless breast upon his breast. How can those terrified vague fingers push the feathered glory from her loosening thighs? And how can body, laid in that white rush, but feel the strange heart beating where it lies? A shudder in the loins engenders there the broken wall, the burning roof and tower, and Agamemnon dead. Being so caught up, so mastered by the brute blood of the air, did she put on his knowledge with his power, before the indifferent beak could let her drop.
Yeah, so it's awful.
Okay, so let's not even begin to dissect that. How would that have ever been about Irish politics? That is bullshit. He literally just wanted to write fucking Goose fan fiction.
Literally. It's interesting because this wasn't published.
Is it?
Well, it is.
It is. Because this wasn't published until like later on, but we're not really sure when it was written. And there's a lot of theories that it might have been written around the time of one of his many rejections.
Yeah.
one of his many. I wonder where that theory came from.
All by the same woman.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And her daughter.
Yeah.
And her daughter.
God, I can't believe he, like, fucking proposed to his daughter.
And then married a woman a couple years younger than her daughter.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, everyone should read up on Olivia Yates. He was a very interesting fascist.
Yeah.
There we go.
He was a very interesting fascist.
Yes.
Also, don't believe anything that your English teachers tell you about him, because they will not tell you that he was a fascist.
No, I didn't
You have
know.
to find that out yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They
you
never
have to
tell
figure
you
that
that
one
he's
out.
a fascist.
No, you have to find that out yourself. You have to.
Mhm.
You can study W.B. Yeats in school and then find out 2 years later that he wrote songs for the Blue whatever. I can't remember.
Valid. I think we did it, guys.
Yeah.
We did it.
Yeah.
Yeats is an interesting character. So Owen, before we wrap up, do you want to drop some self promotion?
Yeah, let's see if I can remember any of my handles on anything. It's the same, but it's spelt weirdly, so you all get to enjoy that.
And we will have it below.
Yeah. So it's Eóin Cailleach everywhere. Spelled incorrectly. And yet still hard to spell. You'll find me mostly on Twitter because I am obsessed with Twitter. It is my little baby. I'm on TikTok very rarely. I'm on Instagram very rarely. Just go on Twitter. You'll find me on Twitter. And
It's always valuable when you put things on Instagram and TikTok, though.
Yeah.
That's true. Also, my website, Siopa Cailleach.com, I think. It is also probably going to be linked because I can't, it's just really hard for me to say this. Like, you will never find it if you spell it phonetically.
Everything will be linked below,
But
including
yeah.
the resource stuff.
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Yes, so thank you.
All of my DMs are open for questions, by the way, in case anyone has some clarifiers that they might need to ask.
You are, yes, you're very generous with your time despite living a very busy life.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you can find Owen linked below. As usual, you can find me everywhere at Eclectic.
You can also find me everywhere. Well, everywhere? My username in a bunch of places changes a bit because I go by Kalokari, which is my name in Greek. Well, because that's my name.
What's your name?
It's a Greek name, but because it means summer, a bunch of people have already taken it. So I have to change it every time I move to a different fucking platform.
Upsetting.
It is extremely upsetting.
So we will have links to everybody's stuff down below.
Yeah.
At Calliope Co, of course.
Yeah.
You can find us everywhere. Just at Calliope Co.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us, Owen.
Yeah, we really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
Yeah.
And
the best.
Yeah, we love you.
Yeah.
That was kind of gay.
I mean, okay.
Yes.
And
that was the straightest thing in this whole podcast.
Yeah.
You know what? You're right.
Gross.
That was literally the straightest thing in this whole podcast.
Gross.
And it was still very gay, which I think is iconic of us.
Honestly, yeah.
So yeah, hopefully we will have Owen back at some point because we love Owen.
Yeah.
And yeah. Thank you and good night.
That was kind of gay.
I mean, okay.
Yes.
And
that was the straightest thing in this whole podcast.
Yeah.
You know what? You're right.
Gross.
That was literally the straightest thing in this whole podcast.
Gross.
And it was still very gay, which I think is iconic of us.
Honestly, yeah.